Hi everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. I have a special guest tonight, the real deal Aiel. She's here to help me do a parent's guide to the Wheel of Time. We plan on doing one for every single episode of the first season. In this, we'll talk about the blood, the gore, the violence, the frightening scenes, the sexuality, and the nudity. There's no shame, there's no judgment. Everybody's parenting is different. However, this is just meant to give you information so you can make a judgment call on whether or not you'd like your children to watch that episode.
Hello, everybody. You can find me on Twitter. My name on there is Real Deal IEL. John calls me Michaela because that is actually my name. You are more than welcome to call me that as well.
All right, so I'm here with the real deal Aiel, Michaela, and we're going to talk about episode 2, A Shadow's Waiting, of the Wheel of Time show. Now, we're going to do a parent's guide like we did with episode 1. So we're going to talk about violence, we're going to talk about gore, we're going to talk about frightening scenes, sexuality, and nudity, and we'll do it in 2 different sections. The first one will be spoiler-free, so those of you who haven't seen the episode yet, feel free to watch this particular section. We won't ruin anything from the episode whatsoever for you, and then we'll jump into spoilers about halfway through, and we'll talk about things in depth after that for those of you who either seen the episode, or if you're like me, you don't really care about spoilers too much. All right, so we're going to start off with violence and frightening scenes in the second episode.
Okay, so we do have a hefty dose of gore in the very beginning, with the added peppering of psychological distress. This is something that is much darker from anything we've seen in the first episode. So absolutely, I think mature audiences only on that opening scene. Definitely not something I would have shown my younger child. My older, she kind of brushed it off. And I don't want to say too much, but I can't really say much without giving away some sort of spoiler. But I will say the ante is upped. Yes.
So when we hit the
in the
spoiler
first scene
version, we will talk
Yes.
specifically about that
Yes.
scene. But I know what she's talking about. It is very horrifying.
hmm
So for the rest of the episode, as far as violence and gore, other than the opening scene, how does it sit in the
Violence
gamut of...
and gore is less pronounced as it was
Mhm.
in the first. But again, we're seeing some more psychological horror aspects as per the location of this particular episode. I'd say this was the more distressing to my younger child.
Okay.
And definitely be advised, definitely screen this one first because this is a little bit more of the supernatural that may be distressing due to your imagination being able to get away from you, things that go bump in the dark type of horror,
So a lot
as
more...
opposed to gratuitous, kind of in your face
Okay.
horror.
So instead of the violence and the blood and the gushing
Yes.
and the whatnot that happened in the first episode, you're talking more of anticipation, frightening scenes, suspense, things like that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So, is there any sex or nudity in this episode whatsoever?
Not that I can recall. Not that I can
Okay.
recall. I don't think there is. Mm-mm.
Okay, very good. Now, so you've heard it for the spoiler-free version. So the opening scene is absolutely horrifying. Probably not something intended for young children whatsoever, but we'll talk about that a bit more in the spoiler version. And the rest of the episode, not much gore, not much violence, however, a lot of frightening, horrifying scenes, and little to no nudity or sex. So now we're going to get into the spoiler version. So, spoiler warning, in this section of the video, we're going to talk about episode 2, A Shadow's Waiting, of the Wheel of Time series. So if you don't want anything spoiled from this episode, be forewarned, we're going to talk about it in great detail as far as violence, gore, sexual scenes go. All right, that being said, the first opening scene, pretty horrifying.
Ooh.
Last chance to dip out, folks. Just so you're
let me
aware.
just say, I love the angle that they're taking because this is our first introduction to the White Cloaks. And they are, of course, religious zealots in the books, but they're kind of ridiculous. They're kind of
they're
like, oh my God,
throwaway
they're
bad
so
guy.
annoying, these guys again, right?
Yeah, they're a MacGuffin. They're just like, yeah, they're there. Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of exist to be weird. Well, they're horrifying in the show. They're the suspected nuance of like them kind of having the priests get up, religious zealot, really violent. Like that is 100% what's happening here. It opens with an Aes Sedai having been captured. Her hands have been cut off, and you zoom in and you see a bloody stump where her hands used to be, and she's about to be burned alive at the stake. You see the Inquisitor come over and pick up her hands and kind of wave them around. I mean, like, it is very psychologically, it is a disturbing, boorish scene, very not intended for young children at all. Like, not at all.
But I guess I don't want to stray too far from what we're doing here, but it makes sense though, because that's how they channel, is they move their hands about and the movements, and
Right.
they're leveling up the White Cloaks. So if they're going to be like this, that's horrifying. That's absolutely.
Ruark said he was horrified too. Yes, my puppy.
Oh, poor little guy.
I know.
So now we'll talk about the frightening scenes in the rest of the episode. Now, you did mention that it was a lot of suspenseful type anticipation horror, but maybe not so much violence and gore. So could you let us in on a little bit of that?
Yep. So we have a little bit of the Trollocs, but nothing in terms of direct interaction. We do
Okay.
get introduced to Shatter Logoth, which is pronounced differently in the show, and I don't think I can imitate how they pronounce it, but it's not Shatter Logoth. And it is definitely things that go bump in the dark scary. Like I said earlier, it leaves a bit to your imagination while also kind of showing the darkness of it all. I mean, I have a hard time describing it. It's quite expansive. They did a great job, and it was definitely the more distressing. It was definitely the more distressing for my younger child. Those scenes.
Okay. And did that continue throughout the rest of it after they left Shader Logoth, or was it just sort of centered around there?
It's mostly centered around there. It's kind of towards the very, very end that they're out of that situation. So yeah, very dark, and you kind of begin to see that this world that they've created is so far removed from the two rivers you're immediately introduced to, and it is a dark, dark, dark place. That being said, there's also some really beautiful moments. You know, you learn about the history of Manatharin a little bit, which I was really excited to see that they included. And it was chilling. It was chilling. So I think those moments really beautifully offset the dark contrast of Shadow Logoth, which was really cool.
And you mentioned earlier, so there's no real spoilers for this, but you mentioned earlier there's not really any nudity or sexual themed scenes in episode 2. So
Nope.
there we go. All right, well, thank you all very much for sticking with us here. We want to do this for every single episode of the series, mainly because I think it's a great idea for people to have knowledge of what they're about to see, and they can make informed decisions on whether their children and their families are going to watch it together or not. I know I do that all the time with everything we watch, pretty much, and I'm sure Michaela's the same. So.
Yes, absolutely. My plan moving forward, my kids came with me to the premiere. I mentioned this in the first video. My plan moving forward, my husband's plan moving forward, is to screen the episodes on Friday night. We're going to make notes of any areas where we feel it's not appropriate for them to see, and then we'll do the family viewing on Saturday. So
That sounds
if
perfect.
nothing else, that's a good idea for you guys.
All right, well, thank you all so very much for sticking with us here to the very end, and here's to many more.